have the license to manage pension funds and pension schemes. So as I mentioned, SIB Najah is the Islamic banking division of the bank that does fully fledged investment banking in line with the Sharia principles, and we engage or appeal to the cross segments of the markets from the individual investors like yourselves, institutional investors, corporates, high net worth individuals, pension schemes, and pension funds. So we work with the cross segments of the market in Kenya. And of course, being a global fund, we also work with individuals and entities across the globe who are interested in working or investing with us within the Sharia compliant funds. Some of the services that we offer at SIB Najah include, of course, the equity trading, which is mainly buying and selling of stocks, both in the Nairobi Stock Exchange and also, of course, in the major global markets across the globe. And majorly, what we do here is now look at the markets and screen which stocks or equities are compliant from a Sharia perspective, so that we can be able to guide our investors into Sharia compliant stocks within the Nairobi Stock Exchange and also across the major markets. So we'll help you access screen the markets, advise you on which equities are halal, help you invest in them, and of course manage for you across throughout the investment period that you're managing, your investment is in the stocks, and also when you're also exiting, help you in the exit of your investment. And if there were any issues or any purifications that needed to be done for the particular equities or stocks that you had bought in that particular time as your investment, we will also help you in making sure that we do the screening, purification for that particular equity for that matter. So the other thing also we do within SIB Najah is fixed income trading, majorly now focusing on Islamic bonds, which we refer to as the sukuks or Islamic sukuk bonds. So we'll be able also to help individuals and institutional investors access or buy into sukuks, both of course the corporate sukuks issued by institutions or sovereign sukuks issued by sovereign governments across again the major markets. We also do the corporate advisory or the corporate finance services also within SIB Najah, but here now specializing in helping institutions or corporations raising capital from the market in line with the Sharia principles. So we also help institutions raise funds or for capital that are in line with Islamic principles. We also have our last, but not, the most important aspect of actually what we'll discuss today is our wealth management services, where we have the Sharia compliant funds, the Mansa-X Shariah funds, which, as I had mentioned earlier, are available both in Kenya shillings and the US dollar, US dollar. So that for any investor whose income is in Kenya shillings, will be able to invest in our Kenya shilling fund. And for others who have their income in dollar, will be able to invest in our dollar denominated fund. We, being a Sharia compliant institution and also managing a Sharia compliant funds, we have a fully constituted Sharia advisory board chaired by our chairman, Dr. Sheikh Muhammad Islam. Dr. Sheikh Muhammad Islam is a well-renowned scholar based in Mombasa. We also have Sheikh Abdurrahman Buhad, who is also a member. We also have Sheikh Ibrahim Rashid, who is also a member of the Sharia Supervisory Board. And we have Khalfan Abdullah, who is our internal head of Sharia and product development within the bank, and also serves as the secretary for the Sharia Supervisory Committee. Now, the three sheikhs you're seeing, the reason actually why we chose is not only their understanding or knowledge from Sharia, from the Islamic Sharia, but also their qualifications and understanding on the Islamic finance. Dr. Muhammad Islam has a PhD and Masters in Islamic finance, and as well as also bachelor's and Masters in Islamic Sharia from Medina University. The same for Sheikh Abdurrahman and Sheikh Ibrahim, also have both Masters and bachelor's degree in Islamic Sharia from Egypt, Al-Azhar University and Medina University, respectively. And also they have qualifications in Islamic finance from Malaysia. So we have ulamas or scholars who have not only knowledge in Islamic Sharia, but also have good qualifications and very well understanding on Islamic, finance. And these are the ulamas who direct or guide the fund in terms of
Just a moment.
my apologies. My apologies. I hope I can be heard now. Thank
Yes,
you. Simeon, you
okay.
can hear me?
Very
All
well.
right. Thank you. Thank you. Mansa-X Shariah Fund is a multi-asset strategy fund
You
that
can
invests.
share the screen. Sorry, you can share the screen.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. Mansa-X Sharia special funds are actually it's a multi-asset strategy fund that invests in Sharia compliant financial instruments, both of course in the local markets and also across the major markets in the globe. So we are therefore a global fund that invests in diverse asset classes. We have currently been approved by our Sharia Advisory Board and also by the regulator, the Capital Markets Authority of Kenya, about 9 different asset classes where the fund is actually investing in. So when we collect the funds from investors like yourselves and also other types of investors, whether it's institutional or pension funds, we put them into a pool and we invest them in the different asset classes that we have. And the reason for that diversification in terms of the asset classes that we're investing in is one, of course, to diversify the risk on the fund so that in case anything happens to one particular asset class, at least, out of the 9 or out of the 8 that we have invested in, 4 or 5 of the other asset classes actually will be able to be doing well and perform. Help the investor and the fund perform well. We also do the diversification also to maximize the return for our investors, so that in case there's a downside of performance on one of the asset classes, at least we have the rest of the other asset classes actually performing well, thereby stabilizing the return for the investor. And that's why Mansa-X Sharia funds, both of course our dollar fund and the shilling fund, have been able to give back above average market returns for its investors. So Mansa-X Sharia funds are multi-asset strategy funds that invest in the global markets. Again, the basic principle in terms of as we do those investments again is we're doing it in line with the Sharia. All the investments that we do are in line with the Sharia. We therefore don't invest in any asset class or any investment portfolio that has any Sharia, issues or problems. So every investment Mansa-X Sharia is doing is in line with the Sharia principles. We therefore don't invest in asset classes where there's any interest elements involved in it, where there's any uncertainties or, gharar, what is referred to as gharar, or investments or equities or any other sort of investment that we're doing that is not in a halal industry. So we make sure that every transaction that we do is in line with the Sharia principles as guided and approved in our investment policy by our Sharia Advisory Committee and also monitored on daily basis by our internal Sharia department, which is headed by Brother Khalfan, as I had mentioned earlier. Therefore, as our global trading team are actually doing the trading, they make sure that they're in consultation and working together with our internal Sharia department to make sure that every transaction that is being done is halal in an halal, investment, and also complies with the requirements in terms of the Sharia Advisory Committee's guidelines. The fund profile is the fund you can be the minimum accepted investment is 100,000 shillings for the Kenya shilling fund and $1,000 for the dollar fund. And of course, from there, you will be able to top up based on, of course, your income and your, of course, cash flows. There's no restriction on the number of in terms of the frequency of investment or top-ups that you can be able to do. The fund has a lock-in period of about 6 months. Being, of course, a public fund, we have a custodian who currently is our custodian for the fund is I&M Bank. One of the most important things for Mansa-X Shariah fund is actually the liquidity aspect. Mansa-X Shariah fund is a very highly liquid fund, which means an investor will be able to access his or her fund anytime that they need, partially or fully as they may require. And once you give an instruction for a withdrawal, either partial or full withdrawal, you will be able to have your fund into your account within 2 to a maximum of 3 working days. The fund also has a performance fee of 10% above the hurdle rate. For the hurdle rate, for the Kenya shilling, we have the hurdle rate at 25%, and also for the dollar, we have 15%. What we mean by the hurdle rate is basically if, for example, we manage to perform and give a return, get a return of, let's say, 27% on the Kenya shillings, the differential between the 25 and the 27, that 2% is what we're calling, the overperformance in terms of the performance. And we take 10% of that 2% above the hurdle rate, which for that case is 25% on the Kenyan shillings. And the same for the dollar. So if we do any return, net return above 15%, then again, of course, the same will apply on the differential return between the hurdle rate, which is 15, and the actual performance realized in that particular period. And of course, the fund has a management fee of 5% prorated over the 365 days of the year. Some of the asset classes, as I mentioned, approved by, of course, the Sharia Advisory Board, where the fund invests, and also our regulator, the Capital Markets Authority, one quoted halal equities or stocks where the fund is currently investing in, Islamic indices, Islamic private equity, sukuk bonds, both corporate and sovereign sukuks, commodity trading, majorly gold and petroleum, Islamic ETFs or Islamic exchange traded funds, Islamic rates and Islamic credit instruments are among the asset classes where the fund is currently investing in. Of course, the benefits you will enjoy being an investor of the Mansa-X Shariah funds is, of course, the Sharia compliance. Being a Sharia compliant fund, you will be able to enjoy that benefit that your investment is being managed in accordance with the Sharia, and the return that you'll make at the end of the day are halal returns. Of course, as I mentioned, being a global fund also, the other benefit is that you benefiting in the diversification of your investments across the major markets in the globe, which you'll find as a fund. At any given particular period, you will see the fund is invested in across 3 to 4, sometimes as high as probably 5 or 6 different markets across the globe where the fund is investing in. So you will be able to enjoy your investments being invested across the major markets in the globe. Professional management, we are as I mentioned, one of the oldest investment banks in the country. So we bring on the table many years of professional expertise in managing similar funds, where the bank is currently managing also the other funds, which has been there for a while. Transparency and accountability, we are a regulated institution, as I mentioned, by the Capital Markets Authority of Kenya. We therefore adhere or committed to the highest standards of transparency in our operations, and make sure that we provide regular updates and reports to our investors. As Mansa-X Shariah funds, we normally declare our returns on a quarterly basis, which means at the end of every quarter, as an investor, you will be able to you'll actually receive a statement of your account, which clearly will give you an update in terms of you have invested 1 million shillings, for example. This is how the fund performed, and your profit for the quarter is this much. And then your principal for that quarter plus the profit that was realized in that quarter becomes now your subsequent principal for the subsequent quarter, thereby taking advantage or benefiting from the compounding aspect of the investment. And we also publish at the end of every quarter also a fact sheet, which is a full document, which we normally is a public document that we give a detailed explanation on how the markets performed in that particular quarter, how the fund performed or how the fund grew in that particular quarter, where did we invest in terms of what were the top 10 investments the fund invested in that particular quarter. And the reason actually why we do the top 10 what you call holdings for the quarter is to also give the investor an opportunity to know where exactly are we investing in, and to also make sure that because we are a Sharia compliant fund, that you will be able to verify and say indeed the asset classes where the fund has invested in are compliant from a Sharia perspective. Of course, again, there's the regulatory compliance. We are, as I had mentioned, licensed institution. So we ensure that we adhere to the highest regulatory standards in terms of, as per the regulations, making sure that your investment is legally, done and also secure and protected by the regulatory authority. Of course, we have the Sharia Advisory Board, as I mentioned, that also oversights the funds to make sure that we are doing the right things in line with our investment policy approved by, of course, the Sharia oversight body and also by the regulator for that matter. We, of course, definitely being a discretionary fund, it comes, of course, with its risk. And this is basically a highlight of in terms of how we manage the risk on the downside risk of the fund. And of course, one is the Sharia Supervisory Board that oversights the fund from in terms of the compliance from a Sharia perspective, as I had mentioned earlier. So they normally audit the fund on a quarterly basis to make sure that we are doing the investments as approved in the investment policy and that we are following the right steps from a Sharia compliance. And if there's any irregularity, that they make sure that it's corrected and the necessary actions have been taken. So that gives the comfort in terms of compliance from a Sharia perspective. Of course, as I mentioned, being a diversified, a multi-asset strategy fund, we have again limitations within the asset classes. It's not that we can wake up one morning and say, this particular asset class is performing well, so we put everything or the whole fund in that particular asset class. We rather have limitations again within our investment policy to make sure that at any given time, the fund is diversified across different asset classes at any time, thereby managing the fund or protecting the fund from any downside risk in case of a performance or an issue or a risk to one particular asset class. We again also have a geographical limitations in the Sharia in the investment policy to make sure that the investment is spread across different jurisdictions or different markets at any given time. And also within it, we have industry and sector diversification. You will therefore see, if you look at our fact sheet, we have diversifications across different investments, across different segments or sectors of the industry of the economy. That we also have limitations within that to make sure that the fund is not only diversified from a geographical, investment perspective, but also from a sector and also industry perspective. Again, we have dealer limits in terms of within our dealing rooms, how much of the portfolio can one particular dealer manage at any given time. We also have at the board level of the bank, we have an investment committee that sits on a weekly basis to make sure that we are managing the investment is being managed in accordance with the investment policy and guide the strategy of the investment of the fund and make sure that the necessary limitations in terms of the asset class, geographical dealer limits are adhered to at all times. Being, of course, a public fund, we have a trustee that is independent from the Standard Investment Bank that sits away and also regulated by the Capital Markets Authority that oversights the fund on behalf of the investor to make sure that we are doing the right things in line with the investment policy. And they also audit the fund on a monthly basis to make sure that we are doing, the investments in accordance with the investment policy. Of course, we also have the regular regulatory audits. The CMA also comes in and at the end of every quarter to audit the fund and to make sure that we are making or managing the investments in line with the investment policy. If I come down to the performance of the fund for quarter 3, 2025, which is actually the last quarter we finished in September, we managed to achieve a net return of on the Kenya shilling fund of if you look at on the left on the quarterly performance, we did 4.79 in quarter 3, 2025, which annualized is coming to about 17.73% annualized. If you look at the quarter 1, we did 3.9. Quarter 2, we did 4.6. Quarter 3, we did 4.79. So actually, the returns have been growing actually upward for the last 3 quarters, from quarter 1, 2025 till 2020. Quarter 3. We are left now with the last quarter of the year, and we're very hopeful that we will be able to maintain that level of performance, inshallah, based on, of course, how the markets are performing. Of course, there are other dynamics, and we are very hopeful that things will remain the same. I actually have my colleague who has also joined, who is our Executive Director, Global Markets, and I'll give him an opportunity to also give a very brief background on the market performances. So that's for the Kenya Shilling Fund. So if this what this means is that if you made an investment of let's say 1 million shillings with us in the beginning of when the fund started, that was October 2023, your investment now as at quarter 3 2025 will have been 1,325,000 shillings. So that is how your funds will have grown if it was 1 million shillings investment that you made in October 2023. For the dollar fund, quarter 3 2025, we managed to achieve a net return of 3.88%, annualized coming to 13.08. Again, if you look at the quarterly performances, we managed to do quarter 1 2.87, quarter 2 3.06, and quarter 3 3.88. And again, alhamdulillah, it's been a good performance, upward performance over the last 3 quarters. So annualized coming to about 13.08%. Again, if you look at a similar investment of, let's say, $10,000, that was done in January 2024, by September 2025 will have been 11,928. Now, the other critical thing that probably I'll mention as I go down is Mansa-X Shariah Fund is under a special regulation called the Collective Investment Scheme Regulations, and under the 2023 Finance Act, we have been, as a fund, exempted from tax. So the return that you make on this fund or on this investment is exempted from tax. That is actually something that took effect mid this year, and we have complied. And so your investments with Mansa-X Shariah Fund is tax exempt. These are some of the top holdings for quarter 3 2025. We have shared our fact sheet, which you will be able to access from our website and also all our social media pages, and you can look at them, inshallah. So I'll leave at that. Thank you very much once again for you being part of these discussions this evening. I will invite my colleague, then we can take the questions. Nahashon, if you could just give a very brief on the performance and probably the expectation for this quarter. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Adan. So my name is Nahashon Mungai. I'm the Executive Director for Global Markets here at Standard Investment Bank. Thank you for making it for today's webinar. I feel that Adan has covered so much. I'm not even so sure what I really should add. The only thing I can do is just give a highlight of the markets. As Adan mentioned, we only invest in Sharia compliant products for our Mansa-X Shariah Fund, because we also have a Mansa-X that's not Sharia compliant, but this is a Sharia compliant version. And we use a lot of screening tools to ensure that any of the assets that are in a Mansa-X Shariah are fully compliant. But it was a good quarter. The third quarter of the year, we saw most stock prices going up, mostly because the world became a much more optimistic place after the anxieties around tariffs were pulled back. Because before that, you had fears around, are these tariffs going to ruin the world economy and so on. But then it came to be very clear that Donald Trump was really using these tariffs as a negotiation tactic. And because of that, the markets then rallied and have continued to rally since then. Another thing that boosted markets was really just very good earnings by most companies and their highest level of earnings And this helps to justify the high valuations. Because one of the things that we worry about as traders is when you're buying a company, is the valuation of that company well represented by the valuations? Because sometimes markets can exaggerate valuations. Moving forward into the last quarter of the year, again, earnings will be a very big deal. We'll be watching the geographical tensions, especially between China and the US, and how, again, this affects earnings. I mean, not earnings, tariffs between the two countries, but we expect that this, again, will be optimistic. We'll also be looking at the actions of the Federal Reserve. This is a very important one because if they increase monetary stimulus, then we expect that this again will boost the stock markets. Another thing we'll be looking at is the performance of gold as a commodity, whether it will continue on its way up. It was one of the best performing assets, by the way, for the Mansa-X Shariah. We own quite a substantial chunk of gold through ETFs. These are exchange-traded funds that have a direct backing of actual gold bullion, and this was one of the biggest gainers for the Mansa-X Shariah fund. We'll be watching gold, we'll be watching silver, we'll also be watching commodities like sugar, coffee, and we will also be we'll be also watching crude oil and natural gas. So Q4 looks like it's also going to be a very exciting close of the year. Most of the times when markets have rallied up to October, they tend to continue that way to the end of the year. We have rarely seen markets disrupted after they actually came in strong. So if you look at our top 10 holdings in Mansa-X Shariah, you'll see that a lot of people usually ask, what does this refer to? Does this mean those are the assets you're holding? So just to clarify, Mansa-X Shariah holds so many assets, sometimes over hundreds of assets. What we show there are the ones that are significant enough to exceed. Typically, an asset that exceeds 1% of the fund is considered a big asset. So that just tells you how many assets we hold at any one point. So we benefited quite a bit. If you can see there from Sukuk bonds, we had some real estate holdings. And we also benefited quite a bit with the tech boom. Right now, I'm sure you have all noticed that artificial intelligence is all the rave. Everyone is talking about it. We were also invested in companies that had a lot to benefit from this. For example, Oracle Corporation, ASML, and Broadcom. This has also allowed us to also be in utility and energy companies, which we also hold, like Constellation Energy and Siemens Energy and General Electric Energy. Again, these are companies that provide energy and have continued to be very good utility companies for us and very good dividend yielding companies. So we are moving into Q4 with a lot of optimism, and we are very energetic, and we think that if everything goes as we expect, then Mansa-X Shariah should continue to offer market-beating returns. So from the trading desk on our side, we feel that that of our investors who want to ask us a lot more questions, we are always available. You can ask us through your relationship managers, and you can also there is also a circulation of global market reviews that we also send out. Please ask your relationship manager, so at any one time you have an idea where your money is being invested. But one of the key things for this fund, and this is where we beat a lot of other funds, is not only do we give you a good return, but we do it in such a way that you are still able to access those funds. Because a lot of funds will not offer you high liquidity if you're giving you high returns. Most of the times you have to compromise one. So we created something here that's very unique. If you invest, no matter the amount you invest, we are able to give you back your funds on demand. So that's one of the biggest advantages, and we thank you very much. Adan, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nahashon. Karibuni sana. I think I'll now, we have also with us part of our other global trading team. We have Farhan, we have also Joseph Kahinda. We also have our head of Sharia and product development, who's also here with us, who has just joined us, Khalfan. I'll open the floor, inshallah ta'ala, for any comments or questions that you might have, we'll give it a few minutes, inshallah. You can raise your hand or write on the message section and we'll comment section on the chat side, sorry, and then we'll be able to read them. Karibu Nisan.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Amina, karibu.
Now, I don't know if you saw my question. I was looking at the portfolio, and I saw this kina ABV, Lilly, Nvidia, and kina Exxon. So looking at their financial statements, they either have the interest income or interest expense. So if kindly you could explain to me how that meets the Sharia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Amina. Go ahead.
Thank you for your question. For the companies that, like the ones you've mentioned, and it's very good that you mentioned that, we use something called Muslim screening softwares that will analyze a company and use a certain threshold to determine whether a company is Sharia compliant or not. So sometimes you'll find that if you'll see a company might have some of those components, but there's a threshold that is globally accepted that beyond a certain threshold, then it's not Sharia compliant, and below a certain threshold, then it is. In fact, sometimes we can buy a company and it ceases to be Sharia compliant when we are holding it. And then we will have to do purification on it as we exit it. So how exactly the Muslim screening softwares work are something that the Sharia board can get into more details, but that is exactly how it works. So you can't just, by easily looking at the financial statements, be able to determine whether it's Sharia compliant or not. Because either way, if you look at most companies will have at least an element of that. So the question becomes how much of it is intrusive enough into the nature of the company.
Thank you, Nahashon. Khalfan, I'll invite you in quickly to. Khalfan, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Do you hear me as well?
Yes, go ahead, Khalfan. Sir.
All right, thank you. As what Nahashon said, there are laid down standards that guide how to evaluate a company from the business that they do, as well as from the income or their financials composition. And in that regard, there is a thorough review on those specific areas on the financials to ensure that they meet the threshold. So, for example, on the interest income or any non-permissible income to the total income of the company is supposed to be less than 5%. This is tolerable. It doesn't mean that these companies, whatever it makes, it is compliant to the shareholders of the indication. So even if it is 1%, 2% of interest income to the total income, you end up purifying for that. This is benchmarks adjusted to recognize that in the modern markets, you cannot have a company that is 100% Sharia compliant in terms of its financials, in terms of its revenue composition, and so on. So the Sharia scholars have put these benchmarks that we look at and consider in evaluating these companies to invest. But also they look on whether the company's total borrowings are also more than the market cap of that company. And they have put threshold of this interest-bearing borrowings, because it's not about just revenue, interest revenue, but it's also about how much you also pay interest to the conventional lenders. And they put a benchmark. If the total borrowings is over the market cap of the company, should be less than 33%. And so these are well-established standards that we are there to make sure that we invest in stocks that meet these standards. And plus that, we have to verify, irrespective it is 1% interest income that is coming or 0.1%, we have to verify at the end of it so that you get, as an investor, an income that is halal, and this amount that we deduct as purification, they are credited in our charity account for purpose of giving it to charity to the community here in Kenya. And we have specific sectors that our Sharia scholars, Sharia board has guided us to distribute whenever we receive this income, a certain amount has been reached. Now, I hope this adds to the question that I've been asked.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Khalfan. Farid Abdul Qadir, maybe I can give you an opportunity.
Yes, please. I was asking about a presentation you did on performance fees. There is one part is written 10% above hurdle rate, and then there is another one 25% per annum. So I just wanted to understand the architecture of your fees, or what does, that's where I didn't understand. There was a slide you put on special funds, funds profile.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nahashon, you can take that quickly. Explaining the hurdle rate.
Okay, so this is how a hurdle rate works. A hurdle rate means that we give ourselves a target, essentially, beyond which, if we perform better than that, we charge you a percent off. So if we put a hurdle rate of 25%, it means we are telling you that if we make a return higher than that 25%, any amount beyond that, then we will charge you a 10% of that. So for example, our hurdle rate being 25% and we yield, for example, 30%, then we will charge you 10% of that difference, which is 5%. It's a way for a fund manager to be incentivized to give a return that not only beats the market, but even beats their own prior performance.
Thank you. Hope that explains. If I go into the comments, why are you using conventional banks as your sub-custodians, as you mentioned? Yes, Gibran Qureshi, we are a regulated institution, which means when we are collecting funds from investors, it has to go through a custodial, account. And currently, unfortunately, or fortunately, the existing Islamic banks in the country don't have custodial services. So that's why we're using the non-Islamic, Sharia compliant banks in the country. However, there is no issue or harm in using a conventional bank for custodial services because we're just using it as a collection. We're not investing with them. We're not doing any other, earning any other return from them. It's just a collection account for the investment as required by the regulator. But of course, we will give priority to the Islamic banks, and actually we're working closely with them to make sure that they provide that services so that we also give them the opportunity to work with us. Do we have a Sharia compliant shares equity investment in Kenya? Khalfan, maybe you can quickly touch on that. Do we have a Sharia compliant shares equity investments in Kenya? Khalfan, you can hear me? Okay, as we wait for Khalfan, is SIB Najah a standalone entity or a halal window within the SIB? How do you ensure funds don't mix? Farzana, we are a division of the Standard Investment Bank. We're not a fully fledged, like what we call institution as SIB Najah. But what is happening is that we are licensed by the capital markets authorities to provide Sharia compliant services within the bank, and also the funds, which are different entities or standalone funds, are licensed differently from the rest of the funds. Therefore, there's no mix of funds or or activities or investment for that matter. Each fund, if it's the Kenya Shilling Fund, is licensed and regulated independently, and the Dollar Fund is also regulated and licensed differently, and they are operated and invested differently. So there's no point where funds between investments, funds between the investments are mixed at any given time. Tax effect on the returns, Nahashon, maybe you can very briefly touch on that.
Well, Our fund being tax exempt is a very big deal. To put this in perspective, as a company, for example, if you invest with us, and this is especially important for companies, and you get a return from us, without a tax exemption, it would have meant that return would have been categorized in your financial statements as other income. It would still have been subject to 30% corporate tax. So essentially what is happening is you have saved yourselves a 30% corporate tax on returns that you gain from Mansa-X Shariah. So in fact, I'd encourage you and not just individuals, but also businesses to invest in Mansa-X Shariah, even as a way of managing your own taxes. Because if you invest those funds or place them with the banks that you place with, you still have to pay withholding taxes on those funds. So you're much safer from a tax perspective investing in Mansa-X Shariah.
Thank you, Nahashon. Is a top-up investment subject to a lock-in period? The fund has, yes, Mansa-X Shariah fund has a lock-in period of 6 months to allow us at least, and also the investor, for us to do a meaningful investment, and also for the investor to get a meaningful return during that period. So yes, every new, once you open the account, you'll have a lock-in period of 6 months. However, that does not mean that an investor will not be able to access his or if there's an emergency for your fund, you will still be able to access your fund, as I had mentioned, being a liquid fund anytime you have a need for it. If Mansa-X shuts down today, how are we guaranteed getting our investments in full? Nahashon, bro, you can take that. If Mansa-X shuts down today, Shariah shuts down today, how are we guaranteed our investments, getting our full investment?
I mean,
and also maybe a similar question as you take,
yes.
Is there a risk of losing principal amount in the event of a bad quarter? Maybe those are two similar. You can.
Okay. Well, first of all, we'd say that we use a very well managed, one of the best risk management frameworks for any fund in Kenya in running this fund. As Adan mentioned, this is a fund. What we are doing with Mansa-X is something we have done for more than 7 years. And in that period, we have actually never lost anybody's capital. Number two, from a regulatory perspective, you're very well protected. Somebody asked about why we place funds in certain banks. One of the reasons is that funds that are held in custody accounts with a bank cannot be accessed, even if we as SIB had any kind of financial trouble, or the bank itself had any kind of financial trouble. The regulatory landscape in Kenya means that custody funds are always protected and only belong to the investors. This is the exact reason why, on top of having that, we also have trustees. And trustees represent the investors, again, offering another layer of protection. So the amount of protection that you have in this fund is so high that you can sleep well at night knowing that chances of your capital ever being dented are very, very low. Any chances of that?
Thank you very much, Nahashon. Do you change, Hussein, do you change the holdings between the different assets during the month? How do you decide which underlying fund should take more proportion of the special fund? I'm not getting the last part of the question, but Nahashon, maybe you can take, how do you change the holding between the different assets during the month? How do you decide which underlying funds should take more? I think what they mean is basically, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, essentially what you're asking is exactly, it's actually what you pay us 5% for. Our entire job is continuously scouting markets, looking at markets and rebalancing the portfolios as we see fit. So the figure that we give you, or the list of top holdings, for example, you see at the end of the quarter, would probably even change 2 weeks or 3 weeks after that. This happens as markets shift. So for example, you will see last year, we had a reduction in some tech companies, but the year before that, we were higher in tech companies. This year, again, we are higher in energy companies and AI-related companies. During COVID times, you'd have seen we were very heavy on pharmaceutical companies. So, of course, this changes based on market dynamics. Whatever is more profitable for investors, we will then shift more capital to those assets. So it keeps changing. Like I mentioned, for example, we had a very good run in Q3 because gold rallied quite a bit during that period. If we feel that it's not going to rally as much this quarter, then you'll see a reduction in gold holdings. And this changes sometimes as frequently, more frequently than usual, but sometimes not as frequent. It's really just market dependent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nahashon. Can someone open more than one account? I want to open one. Yes, you can open a different account for yourself, for your kids, and for your business if you need. I remember American Fortune 500 companies like Apple was included in. Sorry, included as one of their companies. Did they not surpass the threshold? Leila, I think you mean in terms of the compliance from a Sharia perspective, in terms of the screening. Khalfan, maybe can you take that up? I think you have answered that, but you can just repeat that one more time. Thank you. My name is Saida. Sorry, Saida, I'm trying Sustainable Cities Global Fund. Our interests are halal economy and real world assets, tokenization, based in Kenya, working with business in Africa, and we love strategic collaboration with online into digital. All right, Saida, thank you very much. We have gotten your message, and we'll definitely be in touch to take the discussions further. Thank you. If there's any further questions, you can raise your hands, please. We'll give another 2-3 questions we can pick before we close. I know it's a week, it's a working day, and people have been busy the whole day. We don't want to keep you very long. If anyone has 1 or 2 questions, you can raise your hands or write them on the chat. How much is the minimum top-up amount? The minimum investment, the initial investment is 100,000, and from there on you'll be able to top up any amount as you get. But the minimum investment amount is the 100,000 shillings. What are the requirements if get the kids with accounts? Okay, sorry, Amran Ahmed, I will request you will get in touch. Inshallah, one of our financial advisors will get in touch with you and be able to guide you and help you open the accounts for the kids. Simeon, maybe someone can get in touch with Hamran and take it up from there. So what if the market crashes? What action will you take to at least secure some part of our capital? Fawzia, I think that was answered initially by Nahashon. Nahashon, maybe you can emphasize on Fawzia's question. What?
Yes, in terms of market crashes, in fact, one of the things you have to understand about how fund management works, especially when running a fund like Mansa-X, is that the biggest part of our job is actually worrying about the downside. A lot of people assume that what we are always doing is just getting into assets and doing a lot of speculation and trying to get the best returns. Actually, our daily job is dealing with assets that can cause a negative impact on the fund. So a fund manager's job is actually to be consistently waiting for a crash and be prepared for it. So that's something that we are constantly doing, and therefore you should sleep very well at night knowing that we are looking at that. I just noticed, Adan, there was a question about Apple, and I wanted to mention that we follow the Accounting and Auditing Organization of Islamic Financial Institutions. Those are the standards that we follow. And Apple is within the threshold of AAOIFI, and any non-compliant income from Apple, which is anything below 5%, is purified, and we give it away as charity.
Thank you very much, Nahashon. Farzana Abdi, maybe we can give you the last question.
Thank you, Abdullahi. Thank you, Nahashon. I appreciate your response to the fact that you are trying to make sure there's no losses. But we also I would like to understand from an Islamic perspective, yes, there's my profit that is at risk should there be a bad quarter, but is the principal also at risk? Like, it's okay, like there could be a bad quarter, but we just want to know, is it at risk? Yes or no?
Yes,
if you have a bad quarter,
quarter
and you have a negative return, then yes, your principal will be at risk to that extent. Yes.
Thank you very much, Nahashon. Farzana, yes, as Nahashon mentioned, being a Sharia compliant fund and being a market-driven fund, yes, the fund has a risk of gaining and losing at any given time. But as I mentioned, as Nahashon mentioned, being the experts in the field, we always work hard to manage the downside risk on the fund to make sure that investors' funds are always protected. Okay, yeah. Khalfan, are you there? Khalfan, if you're there, there's one last question I wanted you to take. Okay, it seems we have lost Khalfan. Apologies. How does the purification process go? So as Khalfan had explained earlier, any fund or any return that is realized within the given threshold, which we said as per the office standard is 5%. What we do is that return is deducted from the overall return that the fund has actually realized or the investment has realized for that particular period, and that return is put into what you call charity account, which is being managed by our Sharia Supervisory Board, actually, and independently from the bank, and it's used for common societal goods and activities, whether it's paying education for the less fortunate or doing any other societal activities that the Sharia board decides. That is how we manage the purification principles. Give us a contact. Thank you very much, Saida. And yes, it's interest-free, as we had mentioned earlier. We are purely running an investment based on the Islamic principles, and all the returns, or every return the fund is making, is in line with the Sharia and halal returns. Saida, some of our financial advisors actually are on board here, and they will definitely get in touch with you, and we will be able to guide you in terms of coming on board. I think we'll stop it at that. We don't want to take much of your time, as I had mentioned earlier. Once again, I really want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for taking your time, joining us in this discussion today. I know it's a work day, and definitely everyone must have been busy the whole day. We don't take it for granted. Thank you very much, and welcome to Mansa-X Shariah special funds, both, of course, the Kenya Shilling and the dollar, offered by SIB Najah. Please get in touch with our financial advisors or reach us on our numbers in our website and our emails, client emails in our website, and we'll definitely respond to you and guide you on how to join and be part of this investment journey. Thank you very much once again, and I really, really appreciate your time and engagement in this discussion today. Jazakumullahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you,
for the
Nahashon.
good presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and have a good night. It was a very good presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.